This video is going to show all the drywall compound that I use in my area. This may vary depending on where you are. I'm based in Ontario, Canada, so this is what I have access to. Now, different parts of Ontario might have more options than I do. I'm in a smaller community, so if you live in the GTA, you might have access to even more different types of mud than this. But this is what I have access to. I can go to any hardware store, either Home Hardware or Home Depot, to pick up any of this, except this pail here and the taping mud. Everything else you can find at Home Depot or Home Hardware. These two, I go to a specialty supply store to pick these up. So we'll start with the sheetrock products first, like the sheetrock 45s, the 20s, 5, 90. This stuff I use for drywall repairs, pre-fill, first coat, second coat. And if I do tape with this, and if I'm in a pinch, I will use this as tape, but I'll add glue to the mix to make it bond better to the paper on the drywall. One more thing I forgot to mention with the sheetrock product is I said I've only used this on first and second coat. If you do try to put this on for final coat, I highly recommend you do not. It'll bleed through the paint even if you prime it. You need an all-purpose, like any of these 4 boxes for final coat. You don't want a final coat with sheetrock, any of the sheetrock quick set products, because it will bleed through the paint. Next up is Durabond. I use this for all my pre-filling. If a customer has cracks that keep coming back, I'll end up using this. This dries super hard, cannot sand it, and it's only good for pre-filling. I would not recommend coating with it because you can't sand it. And if let's say you make a hump, you actually make a hump, it's hard to take away that hump because it dries so hard. So you'll end up feathering out the patch even further if you end up making a hump out of it. So I only use it for any pre-fill, any problem areas I know might crack, I'll end up using this so I don't have any issues in the future. Next up is the Certainteed All-Purpose. This one comes in a pail, which is nice. It does come pretty thick, so you have to add some water to thin it down to make it more workable. I use this for first coat, second coat, third coat, and some pre-fill applications, although I do use these two for the pre-fill. It sands nicely. I've not seen this at a Home Depot or Home Hardware. I've only picked this up at a specialty supply store, in my case, Orangeville Building Supply. And yeah, it's good for all stages of the drywall finishing process. Next up is the taping mud. I know some people tape with any of these 4 boxes here, although I don't recommend it. I'd rather use a taping mud. It has more adhesive in it. It just bonds to the drywall face, like the paper on the drywall face, better than any of these 4 boxes here. And it's great for corner beads. So I'll end up throwing this into a hopper and feed this mud set bead through the hopper and stick it onto the wall. And since there's more glue in it, it bonds super well to the drywall. Again, if you use this in a taping, like an automatic taping tool, I highly recommend you thin this down a bit more than what it is. It comes pretty thick in my opinion, so you might want to water it down just a little bit to make it more workable if you use any of the taping tools like bazooka, compound tube, all that fun stuff. Next up is machine mud. This is my go-to. This is what I've been taught. So for the past 8 years, I've been using machine mud. That's how I was taught. So I'm kind of biased in that way. So this one I can tape with it. I mean, I don't try not to, but if it's a super small project, I don't have access to taping mud, I will tape with the machine mud. I use it for first, second, and third coat. It sands super nice. Out of all these ones I've used, this one sands the nicest. Again, you can get this from Home Depot, Home Hardware. Home Hardware might be same orange box, but maybe a different brand. But if it's in the orange box, it's still machine mud. Next up is the Extra Light. I don't coat with this. I've only used it for texture. We used to have access to texture mud, but we don't have access to it anymore, so my drywall supplier recommended this, and I've been using this ever since for all my texture. It says you can use it for coating, but I don't have any experience using it with coating, so I just use it for texture. Next up is the dust control. Again, I don't use this a whole lot. This is mainly for remodel projects where the homeowners live inside still. So I'd use this on the final coat, just because it doesn't sand as nice as the machine mud. So I'll use the machine mud to put first and second coat on. And then I'll come in behind with this and put third coat on nice and tight, so I don't have to do a lot of sanding with this because it doesn't sand too well. But the whole idea around this mud is that when you sand it, the dust falls straight to the floor instead of just lingering in the air like any of these other products do when you sand. Next up is the red all-purpose. It's not my go-to. This would actually be my last box of mud I'd go to. I'd go with machine mud, then the Certainteed, and then again, I only use this one for remodels. But then the next one would be this one. I've used it on a couple of jobs, and it just doesn't sand as nicely as these two right here. It's super thick, like super thick out of the box. So you have to add a lot of water to really make it really workable. If I do use it, it'll be on first coat on corner beads because that takes a lot of fill. Yeah. So all these are good for coating. Again, I'm not sure about this. This one does say it's for coating, but I haven't used it for coating. But all these, besides the taking mud from here, will get the job done. It's all up to your preference. I mean, some people have been using this one since they've been taught, and they swear by it. But this one, I swear by this one because this is how I was taught, so I'm kind of biased. So maybe give it a shot. Try each box of mud for each different project and see how you like it. But yeah, that's about it. This is all the mud I can get in my area, so this is all I can show you.